This is the MeatEater podcast coming at you shirtless, severely bug-bitten, and in my case, underwearless.
We hunt the MeatEater podcast.
You can't predict anything.
The MeatEater podcast is brought to you by First Light. Whether you're checking trail cams, hanging deer stands, or scouting for elk, First Light has performance apparel to support every hunter in every environment. Check it out at firstlight.com. FIRSTLITE.com. I'm going to start out by just clearing the air around me falling out of a boat. And I want, here's the thing. We're at our MeatEater Experiences event in Cypress Cove Marina in Venice, Louisiana. And we're on a day when we got a new group coming in today and an old group going. So it's a day off. Yesterday, I was fishing with my group, my assignees. One is in waste management. One is a butcher, and one was a lawyer. And I accidentally fell out of the boat, which I haven't done in my adult life, fallen out of a boat.
And nobody else on this trip has either.
No one's fallen out of a boat. I'll
And
point
you
out.
show up in your first day of fishing.
I have never, I've fallen out of boats that capsized, but you can't really help that. I've never fallen out of a fine boat.
I have, as an adult.
I'm going to tell what happened, and I'm going to tell how I dealt with it in the moment, and then I'm going to tell how I'm dealing with it now. So I caught a redfish that was outside of the slot limit, a red drum. I'll point out, and everybody else that tells the story and laughs about it that was on the boat never mentions that it was the biggest fish of the day. Never mentions that.
It's not an important
I caught the biggest fish of the day. And I was in the bow of the boat, and it was kind of high up. And I took a photo of the fish and wanted to resuscitate it. I wanted to demonstrate responsible angling techniques. So I didn't want to go to the back of the boat because the whole keeping your fish wet. This fish was getting dried off at this point. Okay, so I'm I want to take. I took a photo of it, and I'm like, I know that's all naughty. You're not supposed to take photos. It's fine to impale them on a hook, but you're not supposed to detain them. So
No, I think that's only for trout.
Oh, really?
I think these fish are hardy. These fish can live in the bottom of the boat for a couple minutes, and then you put them back in, and they're like, thanks.
He sure thought so, this fish. But my thing was I was going to do the resuscitation move.
Okay.
But I'm high up. The bow is a little higher than other parts of the boat, and there's no rail. You follow me? It's a flat deck. As I'm and I have carpal tunnel syndrome, which this battle with this fish of exceptional size.
It's thrown in a lot of qualifiers.
Were you in a wavy spot?
No.
Okay.
It was not wavy.
But it was windy.
It was windy, but I had a not a tailwind. That should have helped.
Yeah.
The wind should have helped. So I'm sort of thinking about my how I need to have the surgery on my wrist, the fish's well-being, the height. I was above the water.
Wait. You were thinking about your surgery while this
In the
was happening?
moment.
You got a lot on your mind.
Yeah.
I think
It's bugging the hell out of me right now. It's related to composing on a computer. But the fish fight really bothered it because everything bothers it when it's inflamed.
Yep.
This is all on my mind. And I'm reaching and I'm thinking to myself, my God, that water is far down as I'm...
Are you crouched?
as it started to get really close.
Are you in a squat position?
I can't recall.
Or are you on your knees?
I can't recall. I was not on my knees, I don't think. I just remember the last thought I had was how far the water was away. It was the last thought I had.
You thought you could dive?
And then suddenly it was very close.
I was thinking, wow, this is quite a reach to get this fish down where I need to get him. And then I was just in the water.
Head first.
How deep was it?
But I kind of did like a TJ Hooker roll, that might be before you guys' time. I just kind of did it was like a barrel roll.
So you went shoulder,
ass over tea kettle.
back,
I think
shoulder
is
in
what you
first.
call it, ass over tea kettle.
How deep was the water?
Didn't hit the bottom. I was out so fast, my hat and sunglasses were still on.
What
The first thing I said was I fell in the water.
In case there was any question.
So the problem is I'm with all strangers. I'm with a fishing guide and 3 strangers. So how do you know what I mean?
Save face?
Yeah, I just got right back to fishing. Because what are you gonna do? Like,
Did anyone
do you know
talk
what I mean?
about
No,
it?
yeah, everybody talked about it. It was commented on. I commented on it, but I wasn't like I wasn't gonna. I just got right back up and fished.
Was
I
anyone
wasn't
like,
gonna go sit down.
No, nothing was wrong
yeah,
with you.
Yeah.
you
were
didn't
just
you didn't
wet.
almost die. You had to like stop and think about it.
I know, and I was trying to be like I didn't want to play it like something. So I was trying so hard. You know, like if you're going through customs and you haven't done anything wrong, and then you start tripping yourself up,
Yeah.
and you're starting to be like, how would you act?
Right.
You're like, I haven't done anything wrong, but I'm nervous. How would I act if I hadn't done anything wrong, but I haven't done anything wrong?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what would you act like? You know?
Yeah.
Like trying to come in and out of Mexico with guns. You're sort of like, okay, I'm going to act, you know, normal.
Steve, after you did that,
So back on boat, I'm trying to be like, I don't want to act like I'm not, I don't want to act like I'm,
Like this happens all the time.
wait, or I don't want to act like I don't think it's on you. Yeah, I had a hard time. I was trying to get in the mind frame of what would I do if I always fell off the boat.
You're just like, oh, third time this week.
But then I wouldn't want people to think I always fell. It was just, it was like, it's a very hard moment to play.
How'd you feel the boat handled it?
They did great, and they're all so old, none of them thought to record it.
That's not true. I hate to tell you, buddy. But
I was told
I saw.
Steve, I
saw
don't think you
photographic
understand the
evidence.
gravity of this situation. I don't think
it
there's
hasn't
been
hit yet.
No. There has. Imagine like the most salacious like rumor, like the most juicy rumor out there. When Steve Rinella falls into the water off of a redfish boat,
Trying to release
that
large
word
fish.
spreads in
Yeah.
a way you can't imagine. It was like a wave washing across the bayou of people who are like, "Did you hear?" Mm-hmm. Yeah.
No, I know.
Yeah, I saw
There was
the.
radio chatter, and
Dude,
then
it's probably on the Reddit channel right
I
now.
told my wife, and my wife immediately attributed it to aging, which is like, come on, man, come on.
That's the worst thing to hear.
Yeah. She's like, I'm gonna be menopausal, and you're falling out of boats. That's not how she said it.
Whoa.
Yeah, there was a secret photo shown around, and I also had heard people debating whether or not the real issue here was your technique. I heard multiple people say he shouldn't have tried to put it in the water and resuscitate it. You're just supposed to torpedo the redfish.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's
so
what the
I
guy
didn't-
said.
I didn't even need to
There
do
was
any
some
of that.
debate about that.
Guys
yeah.
say throw it in head first.
It was a technique problem.
Supposedly.
You're being too nice.
How do you guys know I didn't fall in on purpose? Just to give people something to chat about.
Well, you
You
achieved
heard
that.
that Bonnie Raitt song? Let's give them something to talk about.
Yeah.
Talk about love.
Heffelfinger wrote in to say this. Introduce yourselves. That's in the notes.
Go ahead, Mark.
We're here today with Mark Kenyon, Seth Morris,
Hi,
Tony
I'm
Peterson, Randall Williams, and me, Janis Putelis.
On our day off at MeatEater Experiences.
It's not, though. We just said goodbye to a group. We got another group coming in like 3 hours, and we're podcasting.
Yeah, if it-
Hardly
not a day off.
If it was
but
our
like a
day off,
it's
we
turnover
wouldn't be
day.
doing this.
In the hospitality industry, they call it a turnover day.
That's right.
Okay, before you guys see the answer, I want to go around the room. Prion or Prion? Mark?
Prion.
Seth?
Freon.
Prion.
Prion.
Prion, just to make it even.
It's
I've heard of
Prion.
both.
It comes from Heffelfinger. Everybody uses something different. I was asking someone what you're supposed to say, and I'll point out one of my favorite stories is I was getting my hearing checked. This is another old thing. Like the older you get, the more you get tinnitus. My doctor said tinnitus, and I said, "Is that how you say it?" And he goes, "I don't know how you say it." Heffelfinger said, "Here we have a very definite answer. Stanley Prusinger discovered the agent that causes CWD scrapie CJD, which is Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease, Kuru, okay? And he published about it in 1982. He suggested the word prion to describe this newly discovered cause of neurological disease. They gave him a Nobel Prize for his paper. In it, the guy that invented the word clarified that he pronounces it prion.
Hard to argue with that.
Puts that to bed.
Yep.
Speaking of prions, Where's this thing? Durkin. Durkin just got scolded by Uncle Ted Nugent.
Oh boy.
Uh-oh.
Durkin wrote an article. Pat Durkin, the last of the he's many things, but one of the hats he wears, he's a part of a dying breed of regional outdoor columnists. I was lamenting the America's loss of regional outdoor columnists, and someone reminded me of who mine was as a kid that I always read, and he would he'd ice fishing reports, Muskegon Chronicle, the outdoor section. He'd be like, "Hey, the walleye bite is hot. The deer numbers are up, deer numbers are down, whatever." Bob Butts, I think was his name.
Tough one.
Tough one. Not as tough as the one I saw the other day.
What's that?
Fellow by the last name of Schmuck.
Yikes.
Great guy, though. I didn't bring that up.
What did Pat get scolded for?
Oh.
Yeah.
Pat wrote an article. Let me pull it up. Pat wrote an article. It's not for all the talk about this Leon Musk character. This oh no, it's working now.
Leon?
Leon or Elon?
I only say that because I just read that the other. I couldn't find any example. I just read the other day. There was an article. Like, now that Biden dropped out, there's a lot of focus on Trump's age. Like, Trump sort of inherited the like when Biden was like really old and cognitively failing, all of the attention of age was there. And now people are like, oh, wow, that guy's elderly too. Mm-hmm. So I was just reading an article the other day, and someone was commenting that he recently referred to Elon Musk as Leon Musk, which I thought was hilarious. But I couldn't find it. What's that?
It's Elon.
Elon. What did I just say?
You said Eon.
Oh, you know what I'm talking about. Well, I'm so old. I fall
Sign
out
of
boats.
aging.
Speaking of aging.
I can't get my joke straight.
Prions, prions.
I thought it was funny, and so I was like, that's really funny, Leon Musk. And so then I typed in Trump saying Leon Musk and could find no reference for it. I didn't spend a ton of time on it, but I don't know if it's like a fake news thing, but I just thought that was funny, Leon Musk. And I told myself, from now on, that's what I'm going to say. But it worked. Starlink loaded the page. Not as fast as one might like, but it loaded the page. So Durkin's article was the headline: Wisconsin DNR still ignores CWD's elephant in the room. And Durkin is lamenting the fact that a DNR press release on September 12th came out from Wisconsin's DNR, kind of like kicking off the season. And kind of kicking off the season, and he's saying, why are they not mentioning the fact the DNR release failed to mention CWD, despite the fact that it's now in 46 of the state's 72 counties. Durkin said, 4 of the past 5 deer my daughter and I have shot have all tested positive, including all 3 bucks I've shot, age 3.5, 3.5, and 1.5. He finally got a doe that was clean, but his daughter's 2.5-year-old doe tested positive last fall. Nugent says, we can't believe anyone is still falling for the CWD scam that has never hurt a deer herd anywhere at any time. Pat Durkin, what happened to you?
Did he tweet that?
No, I don't know. He put it in his comments. It's like respectfully put it in the comment section. What we're looking at here is 2 different views of it. There's a view of it of, man, CWD is super scary. I hope no one catches it, and I hope it doesn't kill off deer herds. And a view being CWD's been around now since the 70s. No one's caught CWD, and there's no there's like hints of, but so far no demonstrative evidence, hints of evidence, but no like real demonstrative proof that it has impacted a deer herd.
I mean, wouldn't Doug say otherwise?
Doug would say otherwise. But a thing that and this pisses Doug off, but you find that there in areas that have CWD, there's a bunch of deer.
Doug was recently telling me about his spot of property he just went to tour. Pretty big property. I forget, 80 acres down there, somewhere not too far from him, and amazing oak regeneration. I had actually called him to talk about that, and he had the story to start off with, and the two weren't related. And a lot of young seedlings and no browse, the heart and center of like the CWD heat map. So very low,
like it's being depopulated.
very low deer herd, and the oaks are just like. So
Low
if there
deer
is a
herd-
plus for CWD, it's going to be oak regeneration.
Low deer herd
Silver
from
lining.
low deer herd from because there is some there is scattered evidence suggesting lower deer numbers. What I think that people that track and monitor chronic wasting disease, what I think would be very interesting to do is make a timeline and put 2 lines on it. Boone and Crockett entries and CWD prevalence per county. And see, because that is a thing that would speak to, like, if you're not afraid of eating CWD infected deer meat, and many people have, never got sick, and you think that CWD die-offs pale in comparison to EHD and blue tongue, which is true. Like a friend of mine in Michigan, they just lost 50%. There's piles of 20 and 30 dead deer, 50% of their deer herd by blue tongue and EHD. Mm-hmm. So there are wildlife diseases. No one likes to see them, but there are wildlife diseases that are like cataclysmic for deer populations. This is a new one. This is mysterious, and I'll, as I always do when I have the conversation, I primarily point out that I have a fear about human transmission, and then people would say like, "Oh yeah, but how can you say you care about wildlife if you're not troubled by animals dying of disease?" I am, but the thing that really scares the hell out of me is human transmission. I can't remember. I had such a complicated sentence going. I can't remember where I was headed with it. That's an age thing.
I think you just made a good point.
I could just wrap it up. People might forget what I was going to get at. Oh, no. What I'm going to get at is this. You might not be bothered by eating CWD infected meat, right? And you might not be bothered by just the fact that some deer will die of this disease, because you might look and be like, deer die of all kinds of stuff, including arrows, bullets, cars, EHD, blue tongue, whatever. They get chopped up by combines. They just die. So that doesn't bother me. But if you saw a timeline with prevalence rates and Boone and Crockett submissions, and you saw that as the prevalence line goes up in many states, in many counties across the country, that the prevalence line goes up and the Boone and Crockett submission line goes down, then you might find a new class of individual who is concerned about CWD. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I'm surprised no one's done this.
What about those areas where there's high CWD? Don't they oftentimes allocate way more tags?
Yeah, you would have to tease out.
So your deer numbers could be down because people are just shooting a lot more deer.
Right.
Yeah, it'd be.
But they aren't, though. That, at least from what I hear anecdotally, is that like people, we've covered this, where they're begging people to shoot does and no one's shooting deer.
Correct.
So I don't know if that's actually happening.
Yeah, last year Michigan's Department of Natural Resources sent out a letter saying we like basically throwing. It kind of had this tone of the director throwing his hands up in the air, saying, we have done everything we can think of to incentivize doe harvest. And it's not even a CWD issue. It's just like habitat quality, other issues. Mm-hmm. We've done everything we can think of to incentivize doe harvest. It continues to go down.
Interesting.
Yeah, we had I'm going to get the wrong number. It was either 11 or 20% reduced take in our last year, our last season. So deer harvest continues to go down, but population continues to go up. And yeah, it's a problem. They came out again this year in all sorts of news clips and stuff saying, please take more deer. They've starting to tweak regulations. They're trying to find ways to incentivize does even more and more, like our youth season. Starting next year, the youth season no longer will be buck or doe, only does. As well as there's always been an early antlerless season. There's going to be a new January.
Ernebuck really works, but nobody likes it.
It was debated. That was one of the options that was discussed with the commission this year, which I wouldn't be surprised if it comes up again. There's been options of extending seasons, and this will be the case next year, extending seasons into January, more and more counties. So they're doing what they can, but it's really hard to get people to do it.
And then people continue to report harder time finding hunting spots. So you have like fewer people hunting, killing fewer deer. It's just like the amount of space that each hunter takes up has grown so much. And if I look at like when I grew up, we hunted 2 family farms. Each family's last name started with a Z, oddly. Not related. And it was kind of like everybody from church hunted these farms. Not really, but it was just a lot of people had permission. And then it was funny because you watch, and then another generation comes up that wasn't in the strict farming business, because the patriarchs at the time when I was a kid did dairy, raised corn, did alfalfa, had zero interest in hunting. But it's like a smaller farm that isn't going to support many families working on it. So they would have, 4 or 5 kids. And those 4 or 5 kids, there's not room to be a farmer like on the farm. The dad's still farming. So they go and they go into other industries outside of ag, and they like to hunt deer. And over time it becomes that you watch this thing happen. I watched it happen in multiple places. At times it becomes like a deer property, and big ladder stands, right, pop up here and there, and all of a sudden it's kind of like it doesn't have that feel anymore. Like that permission, that property, that access became very coveted, and it was happening, in the 90s. It just became like coveted, and it's like fewer people are on per patch of ground from back when it's like people didn't really care.
Right.
You know?
We attribute that partially to urban sprawl and things like that. Just less land out there, less huntable land.
Sure.
But really what we've done, we're in a big time trophy hunting phase.
Yeah.
It's cyclical. And right now the method is get your hands on something exclusive, raise deer, name them, protect them.
Yeah.
And those people generally, and I'm kind of stereotyping here, but they're not going to be like, I'm killing a shitload of does off my property. The priority is bucks first. And so you just don't have that take anymore. So the people who would be more inclined to shoot does, little bucks, just go out and hunt a weekend or whatever, those people, their experience is declining because they're pushed onto public. There's the guys we saw in Oklahoma, and they're not the ones out there in October killing some does. And that's a big problem we have right now. Because there's still a lot of land out there, but it's a lot of it is tied up because of the sort of the style that we're really adopting as whitetail hunters.
Well, hey, let's be clear. We are all part of that. You've got private land you own. You do the same thing. Janis has private land he hunts. I have stuff. So
We're not all part of it.
I absolutely don't do that.
I have a fish shack, but a lot of people fish out of that shack.
yeah. So I think it's a basic supply and demand thing. And it is what it is, but it's rather than demonizing someone who hunts private land.
Who's demonizing anybody?
I don't think we're demonizing. I'm saying
are you contesting that what we're saying is accurate?
No, I'm not. I'm saying though.
Less
I think
like serious, very serious deer hunters who are very focused. Use more space. It's like more acreage per hunter is used now than it was in the late 80s, early 90s.
for sure. That's
When
true.
it used to have can I hunt your place only on one condition? You kill them all. Would
Yeah.
be like what a farmer would say to you in the 90s.
So
in the
yeah,
early 90s.
all my point is like, yes, this is like a basic fact of a reality now. And so I just see a lot of people that love to complain about it.
Yes, that's my next. I'm gonna have. I have a big diatribe I'm gonna go on.
So if I may, though, before the complaining, I would just say it's more useful rather than bitch about the whitetail industrial complex to say instead, like, okay, this is where things are headed. How can we take advantage of rather than bemoaning it? Let's look at how we can flip it and make it a positive. And so the positive could be the example of what we're doing in southern Michigan with the Back 40 and with volunteers in the National Deer Association, where there's a bunch of people who own private land or have leases but recognizes a thing, and also are realizing there are people who do want to kill these does, but they don't have the access. And we found creative ways to connect those people. And there's a lot more private landowners or leaseholders who are willing to invite these people out to come and be a part of it and to help us with these doe harvest goals. So I think rather than bemoaning and saying like these people who have private land are the enemy, or like it's a problem caused by them, it's, hey, you've got this great access, and let's just invite more people out there to kill these does. And so that's what we're doing. We've got great big deer camps,
and that's what Bubbly Doug does.
Exactly. Doug's a great example.
Once wintertime comes
is a great
around,
example.
it's just like a kill floor over there, man.
Yeah, and so I think it can be a good thing because you have I'm not saying that if we could, sure, I'd reverse it back to 30 years ago, but we are where we are. We can't turn back time. So rather than
turn back time,
yeah. So let's say these guys
spicy he got here.
Well, you're dogging on.
He's,
I'm
no,
kidding.
let's die.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'm totally kidding.
No, Mark, I agree.
He's not dogging on it. He's just saying it's a fact.
And I'm kidding about the dogging thing. I agree. It's a fact.
Mark, I agree with you, but I also think that it's not that scalable to be like, just have a bunch of private landowners jump in on this. I think there's programs you could do that, but part of the reason we are where we're at is because of this message of like the best way to kill a big one is to lock it up. Like a lot of guys aren't going to
hunt it one day a month.
Right.
When the wind's blowing southeast with a little bit of more south.
Right. And I think the bitterness doesn't come from. So if we look at this and we go, well, we'll have a weekend and we invite a bunch of people out to kill does. That's great. Like I think people should do that. But that's also like my wife looks at hunting. If I go bow hunting in the suburbs by my house and I'm listening to traffic the whole time and I'm on 20 acres and I'm scared to shoot one unless it's perfect because it might run into somebody's backyard, that experience is not the same thing as the farms I grew up in southeastern Minnesota where I can walk in with a stand on my back and I have land to work with. They're not the same activity even though they are the same activity.
Yeah.
And I look at that and I go, it's nice to hand some people some charity does and be like, go sit this alfalfa field or whatever. But I think where the jaded nature of, the people who are bitching about this comes from is because they want to go hunting. They just don't have the standards that, the private land guy who wants to grow the big bucks does. And he's like, I'm getting kicked out of this experience of me going and hunting for myself. I don't want somebody to just be like, come out for 2 days and we'll put you in the box blind and you can shoot a bunch. Cause it's like not the same hunt. And I think that's where some of it comes from.
You know where I think the jadedness comes from to a large degree? I think it's a reflection of, and I'm not just saying this because I fell out of a boat. It's a reflection of age. And I'll tell you a little bit why I think that. We one time had an entomologist on named Justin Schmidt, and he is the inventor of the Schmidt Pain Index, which is an index scale of insect bites. He observed, he said this about scientists. He said the reason young scientists make all the groundbreaking discoveries is that old scientists spend all their time defending their now wrong ideas. So as you're coming in and you're developing your outlook, you're like, oh, wow, look at this and look at this. How novel. And then later you'll watch, it'll start to, your idea will become aged. The new generation of people will start chipping away at it. And the human response is to then go defend your set of idea, and now you're not at the cutting edge anymore, right? My 14-year-old works at the MeatEater flagship store in Bozeman a day or two a week. He was working a lot more in the summer, but now he's got school and all that. Him and this other kid, so he's 14. There's another kid that works down at the store who has a driver's license. Okay. I'm out of town, and he's like, can I go, can we go hunting on the open day of duck season, him and the other kid? He's going to drive. I give him like 10 talkings to about gun handling and all that kind of stuff and send them on their way. And I said, where are you going? And he sends me a pond, a public land pond. And I'm thinking to myself, good luck with that. Because it's like they saw a bunch of ducks on a pond. So sure enough, he sends me a text later. Someone's already in the spot, which I knew would happen. Well, later I talked to him. He had the best time of his life. Went to a spot, someone was there. Went down to the river, drove up and down the river. They found like a little slough that had a beaver dam on it. Got out, put their decoys up, and killed a hen gadwall. Ecstatic.
Yeah, they did it. They did it on their own. Great.
And I've taken him out to my buddy's managed duck property for duck hunting a fair bit. He has a good time, but not as good of a time as when like me and him will go sit under a bridge when goldeneyes are migrating through the last day or two of the season, right? And he went out and had like he's still on cloud nine about like the proudest accomplishment he ever had. Now you take a 40-year-old or a 50-year-old who goes to the pond and someone else is there. What is their demeanor about it? It's like you'll always get beat by young dudes who everything's still fun, it's still exciting, they welcome the challenge, and you'll turn into an old, generally, like I'm trying to be aware of this, generally what'll happen is you'll turn into an old, bitchy man. And you'll forget what it was like when you were in your 20s and you scrounged and scrounged and scrounged. We used to fish this spot on the Sue Edison Dam, and old men would always get to the spot before us because they could just get up earlier than we did. We would leave the bar and go to the spot and sleep at the spot because you couldn't beat them fair. Right? Like, that was the level we were willing to go to steal people's spots. And then you get old and you just bitch. We got this great email from this guy in Michigan. He signed it, a pissed off Michigan hunter. And he was saying that he was saying stuff that's just like categorically untrue. He's like, by the time
The big hunt.
Yeah, he called it the big hunt.
This.
By the time the big hunt happens, all of the bucks are dead. Because of the youth hunt and the bow hunt. And they ruined the big hunt. It's like, is there any statistic to back that up? That all
there's quite
of
a
the
bit
bucks are dead?
There's quite a bit of data to prove that's wrong.
How many 14-year-olds do you know are going to not go out because all the big bucks are dead? It's just like you get old and you get bitchy and you fall out of boats and like
You get
it's just how it goes.
Your stories
man.
don't track.
Your stories don't track. You forget what you were talking about. You bitch about the spots you had, and you forget that when you found that spot, someone else was hunting it, and you got there earlier than they did.
Right.
And they drove off bitching, and you stole the spot. And then it became your spot, and then later some kid shows up, and you just like, you know, everything went to shit. Duck Dynasty. You know, I mean, like, Tommy Edison wrote in, the Blue Collar Scholar. You guys good on?
Moving
CWD?
on.
Yep.
Tommy wants to know, why do you criticize folks who wear cowboy hats? I wear one and often. I could make the argument that I'm more entitled to do so than a random driver in a Bozeman airport. I grew up with horses, own a stake and some cows, and even still ride most Tuesday evenings. And he does rodeo competition.
Do you criticize people
Yeah,
that wear hats?
I think he's
It's like he's laying out. He's like, he has every right. No, listen. Yeah, let's say I all of a sudden started dressing up like a cop.
Mm-hmm.
What's that going to do to society?
Chaos.
Yeah. So when people dress up like cowboys, why is it okay? If I dress up like a cop,
It's just a general anti-costume principle.
If I all of a sudden was like,
You should
I have
wear
a
the
little,
clothes
if I got a
society is assigned to
badge and a police hat, and I started running around, and I got like a belt with some handcuffs
I
and
mean,
shit.
it'd be like a little goofy, but I don't think it's going to disrupt society.
If I dressed like a cop,
Yeah, we would like sort of
That does feel a little
acknowledge
different,
it, the new Steve, and then we would go fishing with the cop.
I mean, the real problem is you'd begin to think you wear that badge long enough, then you think you have the power it entitles you to, which I think there's a similar thing happening with the cowboy hat.
yeah, I've just been noticing that this guy, I feel like it's getting a little loose. Who has a cowboy hat?
Recently?
Yes.
Oh.
It's gotten a
I
little
feel like
loose.
this has been going on for my
Maybe
whole
it's
life.
in Bozeman,
maybe it
though,
has.
right?
It's probably it's a gradient, no doubt, right? But I feel like lately it's just gotten a little loose, right? Like it used to, like for a while, it might not be that it was that you had proximity to livestock, right? You had proximity to livestock. You had friends in that world. You held a certain worldview. Perhaps you had certain political leanings. It's now, there's not even, you could have a cowboy hat and have zero proximity to livestock, be like mega left wing. Do you know what I mean? It's just like,
Never ridden a horse.
yeah. And I feel like it's like if I had a police uniform.
Do you think some of it is the
I'm not law enforcement.
Yellowstone?
the Yellowstone effect? I was just going to say, like, in Bozeman, you're just seeing it so much because it's become the costume of choice for out-of-towners coming to visit Yellowstone, the show.
Sure.
Yes.
And they
Have I
wanna
told
look
you how
like,
comfortable my new Tacoma boots are
You like
that I've
'em?
been breaking in, getting ready for the tailgate tour?
That's good.
plug.
I haven't been wearing a hat to match.
I did find a man. Tommy agrees with me on one thing. I recently saw a man in the airport through security with spurs. I'm not kidding. Through security with spurs and his work gloves tucked into his belt.
And he was legit.
No,
Oh.
it was a costume.
Oh.
And
How do you know
Tommy-
that?
I can
Judgment.
Just, I just like.
You can just smell it on him.
You can
Guys
just
never
tell
seen
when
a
someone-
bale
I
of straw in his
have
life.
like it's kind of, I hesitate to say this because people, you're gonna scoff. I have a
Phil broke the fourth wall.
Bill scoffed before we were given the opportunity.
I don't want you to think
scoff.
I'm bragging. I don't want you to think I'm bragging
I won't.
because it doesn't ever do anything that benefits me. I have a future seeing clairvoyance, but only on things that have nothing to do with me.
Okay,
And unimportant
continue.
things.
Example.
Like, for instance, I could meet someone in a bar, and they would say, "I just moved in with a new roommate," and I'll all of a sudden know that in a week that roommate won't be in that house anymore.
Are these
And it comes
confirmed
true.
later on?
Yeah.
So
No,
hold
I'm
on.
saying-
Hold
Give
on.
me another example.
Hold on. The dude in the airport who's LARPing being a cowboy,
Yeah.
what was it? Is there like something that trips your intuition where you're like,
It's a
there's
sixth sense.
It's probably because all his shit looks new.
Brand new. Yeah.
Whereas
No.
like a
No, 'cause,
legit,
you know,
cowboy
is it-
has
is
wore
it
out-
because-
you
wore
know,
out
there's a
stuff.
company that buys gloves from actual farmers and ranchers
There's companies that do
to
that with
sell.
jeans.
Yeah, they buy gloves from farmers and ranchers,
Used.
and they're called ranch worn gloves.
No
so you
way.
can get gloves that seems like you work.
Wow.
did he have those?
It's again,
That's
I
amazing.
didn't engage with him. That's the vibe I was getting.
Is part of this because
What's that company called?
Ranch worn gloves, I think. Isn't it what it's called? Someone look it up.
is part of this because you look at that person and you're like, there's no way a real ranch hand would be advertising that in the airport,
I just don't know why he'd have his spurs on. I feel like he would have slipped out of his spurs.
right?
Over the top.
Yeah, I don't think a real ranch hand or guy working cattle is going to actually wear that shit to the airport.
Let's do a survey. Let's call everyone you know. We'll all call everyone we know that works in livestock, and we'll say, "Do you wear spurs to the airport?"
Dude,
I think you'll get an overwhelming no.
I feel like Garrett Long might wear spurs to an airport.
No.
No way.
I just never
But he
understood.
grew up in a ranch family and rides, and still doesn't wear spurs. Anyways, Tommy agrees that you shouldn't wear spurs to the airport.
I don't understand the impulse to go somewhere and then dress up in a regional costume.
Yeah.
Like if I go
Right.
to a city, I don't put on like a business suit and carry a briefcase around.
That's a good point.
You know, like I was trying to think of other examples where you'd
go to the town and dress like you're from like you're from that town.
Right, like this is fun.
Yeah, what would that?
I don't know, like if you were in like a real fishy location and then you had on like a sun shirt, some shorts.
But there's
you
like
had
a,
on,
there's a
a
practical
man purse,
implication
you know,
there,
with all
application.
the
merce
stuff.
with your flag gear in it.
Yeah.
The sling pack, man. you're still stuck on a sling pack. It's
With
like
your
the
little-
most popular
your
thing
little
to wear.
blaze
I
orange
thought you just
scissors.
called it the sleigh pack.
No,
You should call it the
it's called a
sleigh
sleigh
pack.
pack.
I know what it is.
I gotta move on.
You should call it the sleigh pack, though. That's way cooler.
Guy wrote in. I was saying how some names. This just strikes me as funny. I can't prove this scientifically. Some names you can just tell the family has a lot of money. Who we were talking about? Oh,
Sax
the guy
Blake?
that died in the Titan, in the right. Stockton Rush.
Right.
Like Carnegie.
Like money just comes. Like if your name's Stockton Rush, it's like no kidding, right? Well, a guy wrote in and he said his name's Wolf von Mueller III, and he says he is not rich.
I was gonna say any name that starts with a van, I would put in the
Outlier.
rich category.
Yeah, so I was gonna start going by Stephen von Rinella, but just see if money rolled my way. But
Causation
Wolf
versus
von
correlation.
Mueller, Wolf von Mueller III is pointing out that he's broke. And we had a guy named Rich who wrote in and said, "I'm not rich." Anyways, a guy wrote in, a different guy. His wife's pregnant with the third child. Part of the agreement he made with his wife around having a third child, this strikes home with me because I'm really regretting not having a fourth child, but it's really hitting me lately. His wife wanted a third child. He said, "Sure, that's fine, but I get to name it, and you can't veto my names."
And she was cool with that. They struck a deal.
Guess what this guy's name is that wrote in?
The guy or the name he gave his
Yeah, I wanna know the
kid?
kid's
No, he's
name.
not named it yet. He's looking for advice.
Oh.
His name is Jonathan MacGyver Buck.
Whoa.
Jonathan MacGyver Buck. Wanting to know.
Powerful.
He's kicking around for a boy,
John Buck.
Bridger, Boone, or Buck, which would be Buck.
Ooh.
Probably
For
not
girl,
Buck.
he's kicking around Fawn,
Fawn Buck.
Doe,
Oh man.
or Buck.
Or Buck.
Ooh.
He's really taking the you can't veto this name and running with it.
Yeah, you're really leaning into that.
Right.
Yeah.
Let's just see what I could get away with.
I'll tell him. Oh, go ahead.
I hope he doesn't name his daughter Buck.
Oh,
Dude,
I
that'd
know.
be great. Name his daughter Buck, man.
Really?
I'll tell you the two names I'm sitting on right now.
It's the full name. He wants to name his girl Fawn Doe Buck.
Oh,
And he wants to name his boy Bridger Boone Buck.
that makes a lot more sense than Buck. Oh, so it would be his name. I thought he's got options. Oh. He's thinking about Bridger Boone
now it
Buck.
makes
Okay,
sense.
now I like the letter. I like it even more now. Bridger Boone Buck is a bit much. Fawn Doe Buck is a bit much.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Fawn Buck.
I think it's restrained. I think it's tasteful, very subtle.
He's not going far enough.
Yeah, I've had a vasectomy and me and the missus have been together a long time. We're not going to have any more kids, but the two names I'm sitting on are if I did, I was telling her this the other day. I said, I wish we did have another baby, and if we did, I would want to name it. I would like to name, if I had a girl, I would name it. I'm just telling you, these names are up for grabs. Anybody having kids? My dad was named Frank, so if I had a girl, I would name her Frankie. And if I had a boy, I'd name him Earl. So you can use those names.
Why Earl?
Because someone mentioned the last name.
Because he likes to fry a lot of fish, and Earl.
Guy grew up around. Yep.
Earl? Is that Earl hot yet?
All right. That's the end of my notes.
Hey, we never talked about our trail
Where
cameras.
do we go
Oh
from
no!
here?
Yeah. Did
Oh,
we
yeah,
skip
we were
that?
supposed
skip
to
the trail
Well, no, I
cameras.
got other stuff I want to talk about.
Supposed to
I'll
start
say
with
that.
that.
Yeah, go ahead. Tell me about your trail cameras. I forgot about that.
Well, we were all just kind of lamenting the fact that it just happened to be that when we've got this super fun trip is also the time when all of us are kicking off many of our whitetail seasons, and these days we've all got pictures popping in on our phones letting us know what's going on.
Yep.
So I, for example, there's a deer that I'm hunting on a 4-acre piece that
Better
has
hit 'em
shown
good.
up. Yeah, has shown up 3 times in daylight since I've been here.
On 4 acres.
Yeah. I should clarify. It's not 4 acres. The whole property is 60, but all of it but 4 acres is a standing cornfield. So all to hunt is a little 4-acre sliver on the
So as
back.
long as he runs out of the cornfield,
He could
you're
run
fine.
the corn. Yeah. But he's running around feeling safe now that I'm in Louisiana.
They're,
There's
in,
that.
they're in an open season.
So, Mark, by that rationale,
It's in Michigan.
if
Yeah.
you were in a tree stand, a little tree stand, you'd be like, I'm hunting this buck on 2 square feet.
You're right. That would not be the right way to describe it.
He hasn't daylighted yet on this 2 square feet.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's
But
a
yeah.
64-acre parcel,
56 acres.
56-acre
Yeah.
parcel. And then how does he have a name?
No. He's got really, really tall brows.
How about
So if
Earl?
I were to refer to him, we'd probably say that tall brow buck. My kids call him tall brow, I guess.
No, that's good.
Yeah.
Tall brow. And that's the deer you're going to try to get.
That's one of the deer I'd be after. He's the one that I'm most excited about
Can I
on
see a
that one.
picture of him?
He is a cool buck. And it's fun to have a deer like that on a little place where you wouldn't normally think, it'd be worth
Who owns
hunting.
the land?
Just a local farmer I got permission from. It's going to take me a hot second here to find it, sorry.
Okay, Yanni, what's your
Yep.
trail cam report for over there in Scotty?
I haven't had a mature buck show up on any of my 24 cameras in like 3 weeks now. So
Really?
They all went into a hole. I don't know. They're probably just hanging out in the corn, in the standing corn, I'm guessing. I don't know, or just not traveling much.
Mm-hmm.
But so I'm not missing. I thought it was pretty good timing, honestly, because September is for the elk, and then November is for the deer, in my opinion. So I'd love to do some fishing. in
Oh, that's a
October.
nice
October's
buck,
for
Mark.
the redfish.
Yeah.
That's a cool one, isn't it?
Yanni, were you getting pictures around
Look at
the
his
opener?
brow tines are as tall as the rest of his tines.
I know. Crazy.
No, but again, I told you that
God,
we
that's
have
a
bad
nice buck.
service down by the fields, so I don't really have any
That's
cameras set up on the food.
I got you.
Holy smokes.
So Yanni's got nothing
he's a
going
brown
on.
tines are
That's
awesome.
a dandy, Mark.
And then, Tony, what do you got going on? Notice I skipped Randall.
Yeah, I did notice that actually.
Yeah.
I thought maybe we were doing first row and then second row at the end.
I've had some deer show up this week that made me a little bit thinking that I should be home with my daughters. I had a couple over in Wisconsin, but the last week of September and the first week of October, I often have that happen. And I think it's because even though where those cameras are that I'm talking about, baiting got banned last year there over a CWD pop on one of the game farms in a neighboring county. So baiting was legal. It's not now. I know that some of my neighbors are for sure. So I think what happens there is we get a prevalence of baiting right around the opener,
Yep.
and people get bored with it into the season a little bit. So it's my deer disappear right away, and then they start trickling back in, and then once people are getting excited about gun season, my deer will start to disappear again.
Because they're back out on the bait.
Right. And so the entire time I've been hunting over there, which is quite a while now, it's a very consistent pattern where I'll have deer all summer long. Not a lot of deer because it's a low deer density place, but they will vanish around the opener, and then they'll start trickling back in. So I actually do way better hunting over there, even on the public land over there, by hitting that kind of window when a lot of people are sort of the excitement over the opener's gone, the anticipation of the rut hunt or the rifle hunt isn't there yet, and everybody's just kind of backing off. And I think it's correlated to just the bait piles in the woods.
Got it.
So
Do you think that's what's Boone and Yanni too?
that's why I asked him if he had deer around the opener, because you talk to a CO And they'll say a lot of times the complaints they get that lead to baiting citations are because people are like, I had these deer every day, and all of a sudden they all started disappearing, and I know my neighbor's kind of sketchy or whatever, and they'll go in there. So I wondered if yours disappeared before the season or right around the opener and they haven't come back yet.
Could be. One of our customers, the guest that was with us this week, lives not far from our place, and he said we were chatting about it, and he said that we're probably one of the few places that doesn't bait, even though it's illegal to bait in our county.
Yeah, he was describing a situation that surprised me where it's illegal to bait, but baiting is done openly.
Where I'm at, it's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, I do a lot of grouse and woodcock hunting up there too. It's big woods kind of stuff. The amount of bait piles I find out on public land, just roaming, and it'll be ladder stand, bait pile, cell camera, lather, rinse, repeat, and they're not supposed to be there.
Yeah. So the agency just doesn't have it. It's just not on there. They don't really care about it.
I don't know. I mean, I know in Minnesota for a while, I did a seminar one time, and there was a conservation officer there who he spoke as well. And I was talking to him, and he said, this was quite a few years back, but he said that they had busted, during the gun season, the previous season, they had busted 6 different people who had 2 guns with them. And one was like an old shitty lever action that they didn't care to lose, and one was their nice deer rifle. So if they saw a conservation officer walking in, they knew that gun was going to get confiscated. So they'd leave the good rifle up in the box blind or wherever, or try to stash it, and they had
That's a good idea.
Older rifle. They didn't want to lose.
6 different times they encountered that?
Right. So if you think if it's true, I have no reason to believe he was lying to us. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy. Yeah. Now, I will also say this. If they're walking in on like gun opener on somebody, they've probably been paying attention to that person for a while. That person might be the kind who has some citations in their past. It's not like a random encounter with somebody who might be baiting somewhere, and they're like, "Oh, they have 2 rifles." It's like we're working these people,
So something Tony and I were talking about on the drive here the other day, and I don't know if you guys have debated this on some previous episode, but has there ever been a discussion around the cost? I don't know if it's a cost-benefit analysis or an obligation thought process here, but the idea of basically ratting out a neighbor who baits. Do you turn that into the CEO because it's the right thing to do, knowing though there could be significant blowback to you in the neighborhood if it gets back on you as being the person that did that? And
I'm going to give you a totally honest answer.
Okay.
It would depend a lot on the neighbor, my relationship with the neighbor, and my understanding of what the neighbor's sort of. There would be so many things. It being a neighbor, what their kind of experiences have been,
Yep.
Like I know that when my old man was near dying, he would scatter corn for turkeys.
Okay.
And then sit there and call.
Yep.
Did I call and turn my dad in? No. That's my dad. All right. So no, if we just kind of be like, oh my God, what was our attitude toward it?
Yeah.
It's like, if you like, our attitude was like, really, Dad?
But that stuff can go south I have a really good buddy of mine who has 40 acres, and somebody bought the 10 acres next to him, and that guy was baiting deer hard illegally in Minnesota, and my buddy called him in. The guy was very gratuitous about it. So the conservation officer staked him out on my buddy's land, built a case, busted the guy. Guy had several citations previously, and the guy fought it in court. And when the state turned over whatever evidence they had and reports, and they left my buddy's name on there instead of having it. It was supposed to be anonymous. So then his neighbor found out he was the one who turned him in. And now when my buddy walks out back to go hunt with his kids, that guy, if he sees them, because they're pretty visible, he'll go down there with his AR-15 on the fence line, shoot all night long, shot his daughter's cat in their yard. It's a bad deal.
Yeah. No, that's what I'm talking about, man. Yeah. It's like it would just depend on somebody. It could be a situation where it's just, I'm just trying to be honest. There's certain violations where I categorically absolutely would, but like some I'd have to kind of weigh out.
Yeah, it's tough.
I'd have to kind of weigh out, like, is it sort of an old habit of an old man and they're not going to be doing this for decades because they're kind of in the autumn of their life and they don't know any different and they don't kill anything anyway. I don't know. I'd have to look at it, you know?
So the thing that I wrestle with, but this year specifically, is I know some of my neighbors are doing it, and I go, okay, well, I'm an out-of-stater. I don't live there. So that's part of the calculus. Like, should I call them in or not? But on the opposite side, I look at this and I go, I only get a couple weekends out with my daughters. And those guys are pulling all the deer away. And of course, they don't care about the forkies and the 6-pointers that my daughters want to shoot all day long. And so I look at it and go, am I being smart by just being like, whatever, let it go. It'll work itself out. Like, I don't want to get into that. Or am I being kind of a coward because in a way these people are stealing deer from my kids or opportunities? And so I wrestle with that dilemma because I know my daughters would have more productive hunts if that wasn't happening.
But you could also go down the line and say, well, what if they find out it was me who turned them in, and then they come back and make our lives miserable like your buddy.
Right. Well, that's a big part of the calculus for me because I don't live there. And I think if they got called in anonymously, they'd be like, I know who did that.
Yeah. That's city slicker.
You know what would be the move, and this is something I learned. I learned this the hard way when I was in high school. I just like reflecting on this now. I lived close to a unit boundary for water trapping, or for like the state was divided into 3. It was zones 1, 2, 3. I lived near a zone boundary. So there was a November 1 water trapping opener. And then there was I can't remember what the hell it was, stagger, like a week later or something. One time I'm scouting and I pull over. You know what's crazy is the other day I was visiting my mom not too long ago and actually went over and checked under that bridge for tracks just because I was feeling nostalgic. But I was scouting and checked under a bridge for coon and mink tracks. And there's a trap set there, but it wasn't open yet. Okay. They were on this was south of that border. So it was a later opener. But if you'd gone a few miles the other direction, it was open. Anyways, I'm pissed because I always set that bridge and someone's already trapping the bridge and it's not season. I call and report the person. Okay. Then I get a call from the fur buyer who just lays into me about why in the world. One, it was another young trapper. He made a mistake. And why in the world would you not have left a note or pulled his trap tag and called him? Why in the world would that have been your solution? Right? Mm-hmm. And ripped into me for like selling out another trapper. So as I'm thinking about this, you could go and say, man, can we sit and talk for a minute? I need to talk to you about something.
Right. Right.
Be another approach.
But, I mean, I think that's a good idea. But that does then eliminate your option to ever turn him in.
Right.
Because if you do turn him in, they know
if someone else turns him in, he thinks it's you.
Right. Well, he gets the blame no matter what.
And I don't know these people. Is another. It's not.
I didn't know that. I didn't know.
Right.
I
should have probably said that.
I didn't even check their trap tag. I just called the game warden. Someone's trapping illegal under the bridge.
Right. I don't know, man.
Tough one.
And I would have gotten the same result if I had done what the fur buyer said I should have done. The same result would have happened.
Right.
Well.
Tricky.
Thanks for joining, folks.
Tricky.
I got elk on my trail cameras in
Oh,
Pennsylvania.
sorry,
and one blacktail in Alaska.
Oh, yeah,
It's
that.
like Pennsylvania. What?
Seth's got giant elk on his trail cam. Real quick, let's do this before we wrap up. Impressions of our first our first round.
Corinne's over there doing this.
Yep.
That means you have to talk about fishing.
I'm doing that right now. Impressions of the first round, Janis?
Oh, I've been having a great time.
Yeah.
Yeah, by the time I leave here, I'll probably be able to get hired on as a deckhand, I think, on one of these offshore boats. I'm getting a little crusty, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Been drinking like they come in styrofoam cups when they make a cocktail around here about yay big. There's about 3 of them in there. So you only need 1 per evening. But, you know, one of those every day, about 5. You're asleep by 8. Then you get up at 4 and just, what'd you say? Lather, rinse, repeat.
Yeah. Keep fishing.
Yeah, fish again. No, it's been great. Unfortunately, the weather, this big hurricane that's about to hit Florida, is making for crazy seas, so we didn't get offshore this week.
I know it's hard to complain about it when you know what's
Yeah.
about to happen in a couple days, but yeah, we haven't fished offshore.
But we fished inshore. But everybody's been having a great time.
And
I mean, I've caught more redfish this week than I have in my whole life. So,
Yeah.
I mean, if that
When we were out yesterday, like when I fell off the boat,
Uh-huh.
our problem was everything was over the slot. We had six reds that were over the slot. Over.
which they call bull
Yeah.
drum here.
And this is like in a couple feet of water, man.
They're
Yeah.
impressive fish.
They're fun.
They're really
cool,
cool
yeah.
fish. Yeah.
When that tail comes out of the water and you see that your line's going into the water in one area and then way away the tail comes out of the water, you're like, that's a big fish.
So fun. So fun.
Yeah, and we've caught a few of those black drum that
Mm-hmm.
have been in that deep, maybe even bigger than the biggest bull red drum that we've caught, right?
I've not seen
Oh,
one
yeah.
that big.
Yeah.
We've caught those bull black drum or whatever they call them.
Yeah,
They're
that are
way
like
bigger.
We boated one
25
yesterday.
pound
They must be
range.
Yeah.
tall.
Huge.
Oh, yeah, right?
Yeah.
So
They're
how we've
huge.
been doing it, we meet, we have breakfast at 6, head out at 7 because we're fishing inshore.
Mm-hmm.
Fish till, I don't know, noon or so. Clean fish, vac seal fish. We got a freezer truck parked down here. So everybody, all of our guests, they get all their fish cleaned up. We vac seal all their fish with them. Their fish go into their little storage bin. And then they left today and they take all their fish boxes.
Yeah. Did you guys see any of the fish boxes going out? Did anybody have a full-on 50-pound box?
I carried several of them this morning.
There were 50-pound boxes? That's awesome.
Well, I don't know if they were 50 pounds, but they were pretty heavy. I mean, the boxes that I carried this morning were not light. There was a lot of fish in there,
And that's inshore fish. You know?
right? Well, I would just say this about this experience. The second day that we fished, I've spent a lot of time fishing in my life. I don't know if I've ever seen so many fish come into the boat in one like half day.
Mhm.
We were fishing this trout hole, and it was like a double dropper. So it was 2 swim baits, 2 feet apart, whatever. You drop them to the bottom, and there were 4 of us fishing in that boat, and there were like multiple times where we had 8 fish, all doubles in the boat at the same time. And you think about how quickly you can rack up some numbers, catching 8 fish at a time. It was crazy.
Yeah, you guys were over 100 trout that day, right?
We went over, because there were specks and there was the silvers
The
or
white trout.
trout.
Yeah.
There's no limit on white trout.
No.
No.
We went over that with the graph, and it was a wall of fish in like a 19-foot hole. And the guide showed it to me on the graph, and I was like, "Holy cow!" And then we started dropping down, and the competition down there. There was a guy on this trip named Andy he made me feel inferior as a fisherman. That guy could catch fish like he didn't even try. And I looked at him at one point, and I could tell he had a fish biting. And he's like, I can tell that's a little one, so I'm going to let it swim around until it spits it, and a big one usually hits it after. And I was like, this guy's sorting fish on the bottom of the bayou before he brings them in.
Yeah, he was
wild.
I was fishing with Andy yesterday, and he was He outfished
Did he make you
everyone.
feel like less of a
Yeah.
man? Yeah.
And then I was spending a few hours talking with him here at dinner in the evening and realized that the man fishes a lot.
Okay.
Yeah, he
He's
does.
the guy that we gave the
And
hot
he-
stick award to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not because he's got a lucky horseshoe up his butt. He actually has skills.
He does a lot of fishing in
He's
the UP,
good.
yeah.
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 He's good. He's good at trivia too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Smart fella.
He
No,
is
we,
smart.
we,
Smart dude.
we had a great crew down here, man. Everybody laughed a lot. I thought it was fun.
Yeah. It was a great time.
No, we had a good time. And in a little bit, we got got another crew coming.
Yeah.
All
Look
right.
forward to
Couple
meeting
more
new
hours.
ones.
All
yeah.
right.
Within 12 hours, I'll be catching another redfish.
Really?
Yeah, probably.
Check your watch.
All right.
Yeah.
18.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a late night.
Johnny's got the early shift tomorrow.
18 hours.
All right, everybody. Thanks for joining. See you soon.
Show!